George Clooney takes a stand for marriage equality with his latest role. A new study connects anti-gay laws to cardiovascular disease. Republican voters increasingly favor marriage equality, but this week several presidential frontrunners had some particularly unpleasant things to say about LGBTs. And after a year of problems, there's fresh conflict in Maryland. I'm Matt Baum with the American Foundation for Equal Rights, and welcome to Marriage News Watch for December 19th, 2011. How'd you like to be 13% healthier? A new study this week indicates that states with marriage equality have 13% fewer healthcare visits and 14% lower healthcare costs. There's a marked decrease in ailments related to high blood pressure and depression, likely the result of reduced stress. The link between marriage equality and public health is well known. The American Medical Association says, quote, "Exclusion from civil marriage contributes to health disparities," unquote. The American Psychoanalytic Association says, quote, "Anti-homosexual bias negatively affects mental health," unquote. And the American Academy of Pediatrics says that many of the health risks borne by non-heterosexual youth are primarily due to societal stigma. That exclusion, bias, and stigma can be traced back in part to political leaders who refuse to stand up for equality. This week, Mitt Romney proposed a bizarre three-tiered system to withhold marriage from LGBT families, and serial husband Newt Gingrich this week suggested that being gay is a choice. But those Republican frontrunners are increasingly out of step with their constituents and with growing factions within their own party. A New York Times survey of likely Republican caucus goers in Iowa shows 58% support legal recognition for LGBT couples. And in Colorado, a group of conservative Republican lawmakers plans to launch a campaign called Coloradans for Freedom. A civil unions bill is expected in the state in 2012, with support for civil unions polling at around 72%. Polling's a bit more mixed in Montana, where 62% support legal recognition, but only 37% support full marriage. There was a flurry of activity at state equality organizations this week. Marriage Equality USA has merged with Marriage Equality New York, and Equality California is bouncing back from widespread staff departures with a new team announced to lead public education and legislative work. There's trouble in Maryland this week, with the national organization Freedom to Marry sounding serious alarm bells about an upcoming marriage equality campaign. Legislators will try to pass a marriage equality bill in 2012, but Freedom to Marry has expressed concern that organizers are unprepared to defend the law if anti-gay groups launch a referendum. Polling in Maryland has fluctuated over the last year. In January of 2011, a marriage bill was favored 51 to 44%. But just this past October, those numbers had flipped, with 49% opposed and 48% in favor. As we've seen before, voters can be misled by anti-gay groups, which is why we continue to suffer losses when fundamental rights are put up to a popular vote. But equality advocates are finding increasing success by pursuing protections in court. On Friday of last week, one of the country's leading lawsuits against DOMA had a hearing in a San Francisco district court. The case is Galinsky versus the Office of Personnel Management, and it's still many months, or possibly years, away from a conclusion. But Friday's proceedings were encouraging, with the judge asking tough questions of the anti-gay lawyers hired by House Speaker John Boehner. And finally this week, George Clooney is signed on to the LA premiere of 8, Dustin Lance Black's play about the Prop 8 trial. The curtain goes up March 3rd at the Wilshire Ebell Theater. Ticket information will be forthcoming. Those are the headlines. Visit us over at marriagenewswatch.com for more on all these stories and more, and head over to facebook.com/marriagenewswatch to get breaking news alerts right on your wall. Visit AFER.org for more on the federal fight to overturn Prop 8, and we'll see you next week.